Hello and welcome to the 2024 Chicago Bears team preview. We got Caleb Williams, Mr. 101, hopefully becoming the franchise's first ever 4,000-yard passer. What a freaking low bar. But also DeAndre Swift, new RB1 in the Windy City, and arguably the league's single best wide receiver trio with DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Odunze. Sadly, only one football to go around. Thanks for that, Biden. So all that and much more in your Bears preview. Let's get after it. I'm your host, Ian Harditz, and joining me, as always, Fantasy Life Director of Analytics, Dwain "The Rock" McFarland. And Dwain, suddenly quite a bit of optimism for your Chicago Bears. The Bears, Caleb Williams, the 101, gone is Justin Fields. Will it be different? Because let's face it, we look at this pretty much entire franchise history, and a hater could say that this team has not had a good quarterback, an overly good quarterback since Sid Luckman. Yeah, okay, Cuddy does it, had McMahon win the Super Bowl and stuff. But man, it's been bad. Can Caleb Williams buck the trend?
Absolutely, Caleb Williams can buck the trend. And like the beauty of the Bears is they're like a best ball drafter, and they've been setting this stack up all along. You go and you make your trade. You give up the pick to go get Bryce Young, but you get DJ Moore as part of that deal coming back. Offseason comes along. You're like, oh, you're going to shed Keenan Allen over there. The Chargers paying him too much. Great. We'll take him on as well. And then you have that number one pick, and you're able to get Caleb Williams. What's kind of funny is how people started to sour a little bit on Caleb Williams towards the end of this process, Ian. But everything that I looked at, now we do not have a supermodel for quarterbacks.
Yeah,
I don't have anything predict yet. I'm still working on it. I looked at it really hard 2 years ago. I'm going to dig back into it this next offseason. So I don't have something where I can give you these predicted percentage hits based on a model. But man, everything that I do look at, and I think you did a really good rundown of him whenever we did the previews and the prospect profiles, and you did most of the quarterbacks. I thought you did great work. But man, everything I do look at, I feel good about Caleb Williams. And then stepping into this offense, and the fact that while he's not Jaden Daniels, he's not even Drake May as a rusher, he still has upside as a rusher. And he's a guy that's been very good once you get down around the goal line and having a nose for punching those rushing touchdowns in. So I think there's just a lot to like with Caleb Williams. If I had, and I get it, you're going to okay, great, Dwain, the number one pick overall, of course, is the guy. But if I had to pick a rookie this year that I'm like, okay, they could have a CJ Stroud-like season, obviously Caleb Williams would be the choice.
And arguably could be more fantasy friendly than what CJ Stroud was able to do. I mean, you mentioned the rushing touchdowns, 27 and 37 career games. Now, we did see sacks take a lot out of his, just raw numbers. College football, please get with the times and change that already. But, accounting for all that, actually averaged, it was 6.7 fantasy points per game from purely rushing. Guys like Deshaun Watson were at 7.8, Justin Fields at 8. So I'm not saying he's going to, be the next Fields running the ball, but he can certainly scoot a bit and provide us, again, some of that Everett fantasy-friendly rushing stuff on the ground there. So top 10 passer during college, PFF passing grade, passer rating, yards per attempt. I mean, my God, over these last two seasons, Bo Nix had 94 total touchdowns. Caleb had 93, and a distant third place was Jaden Daniels at 78 among Power 5 quarterbacks. So the one concern is the pressure to sack ratio, but even that, man, once you start grinding it a little bit, you actually see Caleb taking a page out of Joe Burrow's book, and there's a plus 8.6% difference in his P2S rate on third down when, accordingly, you're about to punt or kick a field goal anyway. Yeah, don't want to take yourself out of field goal range, but again, Caleb, to me, man, it really was people overthinking it at a certain point. That 2023 USC offense, I mean, watching the night and day difference gave me a whole new respect for Jordan Addison and what he was able to do in 2022. And yeah, people, we've watched the Notre Dame game in 2023, okay? It happened against a really freaking good defense, and Caleb still found a way to battle in the second half and still put some good throws on tape. So you already talked about the supporting cast. I'm with you. Caleb Williams, I'm a believer. But, Dwain, a top 12 fantasy quarterback in year one believer? Because that's what he's costing right now.
Yeah, I think he's right there. I think he's a borderline QB1. I think he definitely has the upside to be a 4,500-yard passer. And if he suddenly punches as six or seven touchdowns and adds 350, 400 yards on the ground rushing, man, you're going to love having Caleb Williams on your team. So he's a guy that I definitely like targeting. Obviously, a lot of pass catchers we'll talk about here in a second that you can take before Caleb Williams goes, and you can maybe take 2 of those if you want. So yeah, I am in on Caleb Williams this year. Whenever I get to the names, once I get past Jaden Daniels, I'm still taking Jaden Daniels over Caleb Williams, just in a vacuum. But once I get past that name and I start looking at the Tuas, start looking at the Jared Goffs, all that kind of the pocket passers, I kind of like Caleb right there because I think he could rival those guys as a pocket passer, but add a little bit more than what they have to offer on the ground.
Caleb is my 4th most drafted quarterback so far of the offseason. So I am also in on him there. Even Dwain in my OG Dynasty League, quarterback room was getting old, had to make a change. And our own Chris Allen was sitting there with the 101 in a good quarterback room. So I want to say I flipped 108. Sold high on Puka Nacua, and I think I gave DeAndre Hopkins as a throw-in to end up getting Caleb Williams. So time will tell. We'll see. But, yeah, done, middling around in super flex leagues without any viable quarterbacks. Sit your ass on the bench, Russell Wilson. So back to the Bears. Enough of my fantasy nonsense. DeAndre Swift, new RB1 in town, and he is now the league's 7th highest paid player at the position. Got more guaranteed money than even guys like Joe Mixon and Josh Jacobs, even if his deal at first didn't actually look quite as large. So obviously last year, major victim of the tush push. Only Joe Mixon actually was stopped at the 1-yard line and failed to score on the same drive more than Swift. And Mixon had a couple drives where it happened 2 or 3 times. So in terms of actual drives where you couldn't have scored multiple touchdowns on the same drive, obviously Swift would have won on that. That said, Dwain, we saw the receiving production fall off a cliff over the second half of the year. And these are offenses where last year the Bears were 28th in RB targets, and new offensive coordinator Shane Waldron, he was also bottom 6 over the last 2 years in terms of what the Seahawks were doing with their running backs. So on the one hand, I look at Swift and it's why is he just basically going the same price he was last year, even though we have the financial backing behind him? On the other hand, I look at this Bears offense, and similar to Philly, I'm just not so sure the most fantasy friendly environment for any running back, and specifically in this case, DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, look, I think Swift, though, where you're getting him, he's fine. Is he a player that you want to click on all the time? But I've talked about it. If you're looking at the NFC North, man, especially if you're looking at the Bears, you're looking at the Vikings, you're looking at the Packers, and you're drafting in best ball weeks 15 through 17. If you sprinkle some Seattle Seahawks in there with that, you get matchups all through those last 3 games where you could have all these shootouts. So sometimes DeAndre Swift ends up on my team just because I'm I've got all these things. I didn't get any of the Bears pass catchers, so I'm not going to be going after Caleb Williams. Not that high on Cole Kmet this year. We'll get to him in a bit. Then Swift is the guy. He does have this path to potentially being out there every down. We have seen him be prolific in both phases of the game. Has he ever put it all together? It's like you the other day, Ian, were saying, man, you went and played golf and you just stroked one at the end, and it's going to keep you coming back. That's DeAndre Swift. He can do one of the things, but he never has put the whole thing together. But it's enough to keep us coming back. We're man, we've seen him be a good rusher. Wow, we've seen him be a really good pass catcher out of the backfield. If we could ever get a year where he puts all those things together, and this is a year where that could happen, and you're getting him in round 8 of your fantasy drafts, I think the price tag is fine. That makes him fine as a running back 2 for your team. And I'm not that worried at this point about Khalil Herbert and Roschon Johnson. Could they mix in? Yeah, absolutely they can mix in. I don't think DeAndre Swift is a guarantee or a lock to get all this work, but I think he's clearly the lead back in this offense. And if somehow things click in the passing game again for DeAndre Swift and he gets over 50% of the rushing attempts, he's going to end up being a value, in round 8 of a fantasy draft.
From Bears head coach Matt Eberflus on Swift, he's a weapon out of the backfield, which is outstanding for our passing game, and it's going to create some mismatches for us. We really needed that guy that could really operate on 3rd down and even on 1st and 2nd down and be a weapon. So we'll see what happens. There were some red flags.
The question is short yardage for him. He's struggled there. Right. But the least predictive stat year over year is usage. And as far as utilization, it gets stronger in the season, but season over season, trying to figure out who's going to get the carries inside the 5-yard line, it's not easy. That data is not sticky year over year. So I would like your thoughts on this. I think some people are immediately ruling out Swift as being the guy that gets the carries inside the 5, but I think there's still a chance. I'm not saying he's going to get it, but I think there's still a chance. And if he does get that and he's getting passing down work, then I think there could be value here.
I don't see them just yanking him off the field inside the 5 for who? Khalil or Roshan, like they gave him this money for a reason. I understand it doesn't always work out. I've done a lot of work on players changing team and it not working out. But Dwain, usually when it's not even worked out, take Miles Sanders, Chase Edmonds with Miami. Those players have still had the chance. They just didn't do a damn thing with it. And then accordingly got their job snatched later. So Swift, man, like going into last year, the argument was just like, he's never going to stay healthy enough to do this. Like, he was healthy enough to handle 268 touches. Don't exactly think he was, the biggest problem there in Chicago. But that is the one red flag in terms of, is he going to be able to make plays happen? Because 45th among 49 qualified running backs in yards after contact per carry, which I think can sometimes be a skewed stat because a guy breaks tackle at the line of scrimmage, runs for 60. Is that even representing what we want to represent? So I like to look at the percentage of carries where you gained at least 2 yards after contact, and he's dead last in that. So again, I think that matches the eye test. Not exactly moving piles. We'll see if Caleb and company can hopefully get him more involved in the passing game. But yeah, man, going next to guys like Zach Moss, James Conner, the Steelers running back, Zamir White, the top 48 plus wide receivers are already gone at that point in the draft. Even if it's not Swift, Dwain, I do think it's a great area to get your first or second running back in. I've been happy to mix in Swift too. Yeah,
look, the guy I take the most often, if I'm like just, pounding the table for someone anywhere in that range, is Jaylen Warren. That's one of my most drafted running backs. So outside of that, again, a lot of these guys mix together. I'm going to go Aaron Jones over DeAndre Swift because Aaron Jones is proven like he can do it. DeAndre Swift, again, has had one part of his game or the other working, but never all of it at the same time. But I do think he belongs where he's going. Like Zamir White, we could argue, okay, really? We're just projecting volume for Zamir White. And I do draft Zamir White. But I think clearly, like, if you're going to say, oh, Zamir White is 100% better than DeAndre Swift, like, I don't know. Like, I mean, those two are pretty close for me.
Jaylen Warren, my third most drafted running back. So
I can't believe he's not number one. You are not on brand, and you're going to need to fix this.
I am on brand my number 2 running back, Antonio Gibson, which is horrifically terrifying. I told myself we wouldn't go down this path again before the offseason. Alas, here we are. So obviously the most expensive part of the Bears offense in Fantasyland is this wide receiver room and how quickly things can change. I mean, seriously, for as bad as the Bears set up Justin Fields for the first 2 years of his, career there, they have done a fantastic job, setting up Caleb with all sorts of weapons around him. So again, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Roma, Odunze, dog, but only one football to go around. Dwain, your fantasy life projections currently have DJ Moore leading the way, 117 targets, Keenan in second at 106, Rome in third at 97. So I think that's fair. I mean, DJ reigning wide receiver 9 in PPR points per game. Rome is a rookie. Please, for the love of God, don't let this offseason hammy issue, linger at all in the training camp. But I don't think we should be necessarily writing off Keenan just yet. He was ESPN's single best wide receiver in open score last year and the reigning wide receiver 3 in Fantasyland. So talk about how you kind of got to that, target discrepancy and just how strong, I guess, you're feeling about guys like Keenan and Rome making up for the lack of overall volume with perhaps, heightened efficiency.
Yeah, and that ESPN open score, I just did some research yesterday on stability year over year, and it was, that's really strong. It was a 0.40 R squared for you math nerds. That's pretty good, right there below yards per route run. Targets and things like that are still above, right? Mm-hmm. But it's kind of nice to know which players are actually getting open, especially if you got a data point that's sticky relative to a lot of other things that we look at in football that grade out much lower than that. So hat tip to ESPN and their analytics team for getting that stuff. But yeah, when I look at this offense, I like you mentioned, DJ Moore is the guy that I have at the top. I think he's fine where he's going in round 3. The question mark does start with Keenan because he is getting older, but I just did some research, dropped an article last week. You guys can go check it out, talking about age, when we should worry about it with wide receivers. And okay, great. Once they get to that age where we know they could hit the cliff, or there's some things that we could be looking for that would tell us if the wide receiver is on the decline or if we should probably go ahead and invest one more season on him. And Keenan checked more of the positive boxes. The biggest thing for him is he has battled injuries over the last few years, which can be one of the things that, come before a massive decline. But the target competition is the biggest thing here, Ian. And Rome Odunze is my most drafted wide receiver from this group. Now, every draft I've done so far to this point in the season has been best ball. My dynasty drafts happen later, so I haven't even done those yet. But whenever I look at Rome, it's like, what could he be at the end of the year? And as far as his prospect profile goes, you look at him in the rookie supermodel, Ian, the guys that had this man's profile, 83% of them went on to have a top 36 finish in their first 2 seasons. 67% were top 24 by year 2. So in year 1 or 2, they were already posting a top 24 season. When I look at this team, I look at Keenan getting a little older. I look at the later in the season, especially like there's a lot of things that can happen. Sorry, producer swing. But if for some reason the Bears are losing, we can see more Rome earlier rather than later. The one thing I want to know, my big focus for this team on training camp is who's playing in the 2 wide receiver sets. Yeah. That's going to go a long way. We don't know if it's going to be Keenan kicking outside or if it's going to be Rome, and really Keenan's only getting on the field when they go to 3 wide receiver sets is very important because we'll get to Shane Waldron in a second, but not the most dependable coach when it comes to just saying, hey, let's get your best guys on the field. So it is a concern, but Odunze is my most drafted. He's the cheapest guy. DJ Moore's second. Keenan's third. I hate to say it, even though he checked a lot of positive boxes for me, I just have some questions.
And, if you guys have already listened to our Minnesota Vikings team preview, which you can find in the exact same spot you're listening to us now, went through just some of the historical struggles from rookie quarterbacks. Now, a lot of things Dwain mentioned was guys who weren't picked first overall and weren't expecting to be the quote unquote generational talent that Caleb might. So it is fair to have a higher just overall, I think, expectation for Caleb and his passing game and accordingly the wide receivers. But again, with a rookie quarterback starting at least 10 games, only 5 wide receivers have put up top 12 PPR numbers. Keenan did it with Herbert. Nico did it last year with Stroud. We also had Percy Harvin, Steve Smith, and Reggie Wayne get it done back in the day. So unlike with Justin Jefferson, you don't have to pay this top 5 price to get these guys. DJ Moore currently wide receiver 21 ADP. Keenan Allen sitting there at wide receiver 33, and then Rome a bit further down at wide receiver 38. So again, as someone that's drafted a lot of Caleb Williams, I've accordingly wanted to stack him with his wide receivers. I think they're all priced about right. Dwain, and other than Rome, I don't think you can make that big of an argument that, again, these guys are just super undervalued. So, yeah.
Moore has fallen too far now. Early in the offseason, I wrote about DJ Moore being overvalued. Well, now the market has swung too far the other way. DJ Moore falling to you in the middle of the 3rd round, sometimes at the end of the 3rd round, is now a buy.
So you're playing both sides of the fence so that you're always right. No, I'm just playing. We're allowed to adjust.
No, I'm just playing hate the ADP, not the player, like someone really great that I know once said.
Like a wise man once said. No, I'm just playing. And I know, Dwayne, you talked about the Bears and Seahawks and kind of Vikings-Packers correlation going on. Getting that DJ Moore there at the 2-3 turn, I like when that happens. So, but you did mention, again, the potential issues with 2 wide receiver sets coming from new offensive coordinator Shane Waldron. They threw the ball quite a bit in Seattle during his 2 years running the show. 62.3% pass play rate was 9th. But if you guys caught the interview in March where Jackson Smith and the Jigba was asked about Shane Waldron, didn't have the nicest things to say. So, Dwayne, that was just JSN who had his own issues last year. I'm not going to fully, put stock into that. But what have you seen from Waldron, and perhaps are there any big takeaways about what it could mean for these wide receivers' fantasy production in particular?
It's been a major struggle for Shane Waldron. He doesn't dial up any of the easy buttons. Play action rate per drop back last year, 10%, one of the worst marks in the league. The league average is 15%. Shift or motion, we've already talked about that. A route, as far as fantasy points, PPR with motion is 55% more valuable than a route without motion. So I get it. Oh, that's fantasy, Dwayne. How do we score fantasy points? Catches, yards, the same things an offensive coordinator should want to move the ball down the field. So that's not good. And then if you look at just the rest of the way he handles the offense overall, like plays per game, one of the worst in the league. And then player utilization on top of that. When you go draft JSN to go along with Lockett and DK Metcalf, come on, man. Like, let's have more than 63% of your snaps be in 11 personnel. Like, this guy, I feel like, has just been swimming up water with every decision he's made. Now, maybe that was Pete Carroll. Maybe Pete Carroll was really, holding him down. But are we so confident like Matt Eberflus is going to be like the thing that's going to suddenly resurrect Shane Waldron? So the biggest risk, in my opinion, on this offense outside of a rookie quarterback is the fact that we do have Shane Waldron, and we're putting a lot of faith in Shane Waldron. Where, look, the prices are fine on the Bears, but if he's the old Shane Waldron, it's going to be hard for him to all pay off.
Yeah, and I think that's the primary issue here. Again, only one football to go around, and it is a rookie QB. So as much as I do, think there's a lot of reason for optimism, there is, a scenario in my head that I can see this not exactly going the way that Bears fans wanted to. So Seahawks over the last 3 years, I wouldn't say they had the best tight end room in the league, Dwayne, but that didn't stop them from actually running the 6th most total snaps with at least 2 tight ends on the field. Please, for the love of God, let's not make that a habit when you have arguably the best wide receiver receiver trio in the NFL. So, but hey guys, if you feel differently, you want to put your money where your mouth is, no better place to do it than over at DraftKings. We have partnered with DraftKings Sportsbook, and right now, all new customers who bet just $5 will get $150 back in bonus bets instantly. All you got to do is download the DraftKings app now and sign up using our promo code FantasyLife. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. DraftKings is the one-stop shop for all things daily fantasy, where you can join in on all the fun and have a shot to win cash prizes. Check out Dwain and myself Friday mornings at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. You can watch us be in those DraftKings best ball streets, curse each other out when we take our players, and generally just hate and love life at the same time. That's how it goes, man. You know, we're drafting, we're having a good time, but when you're having a good time, you know, people do dumb crap that makes you have a bad time. That's why we love the game after all. But moral of the story, everyone, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Again, new customers using promo code FantasyLife can bet just $5 on any wager and get $150 back in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code FantasyLife only at DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. Win total time, Mr. McFarland, 8.5 minus 165 on the over per the fine folks at BetMGM. So yeah, I'm taking the under. This would be their second best season of the last 12 years. Still searching for the 4,000-yard passer. Hey, if the offense goes smooth, the defense plays like it did after it got Montez Sweat last year, where it was fifth in the EPA per play from week 9 on, I see the path. But again, we've seen a lot of years with the Bears where we've had this, you know, rosy feeling, you know, in the offseason months, and then reality strikes us in September. So I feel like everything needs to go pretty damn perfect for this to be coming to fruition inside a competitive NFC North. I'm taking the under, but I am still, you know, overall feeling good about the future of this team.
Yeah, not betting it at those odds, but obviously the market is showing you, you know, minus 165. The over is probably the way that we should be leaning, is if we're just flat out calling this. Yeah. And I look at it, they won 7 games last year. You had Caleb Williams, you had Keenan Allen, you had Odunze. Is that worth a win and a half? And that's not outlining everything that's happened for this team. I think it probably is. I think that's probably worth, you know, another. Well, we'd have to say it's worth another 2 wins.
And Gerald Everett, bro.
Yeah, and Gerald Everett, yes. Come on, man. Like, I was saving that for you. That's a vibes take. But yeah, I'm going to go with the over.
That takes us right to our position battle. Cole Kmet versus Gerald Everett. Look, it's not a position battle. Cole Kmet, you know, making, I believe, $50 million plus dollars. Still, you know, only 25 years old, which is a shocker given he's been in the league for so long at this point. He's fine. I think he had ESPN ratings like best overall catch rating. Like, he absolutely mossed that dude in the Falcons game. Cole Kmet is fine. Last 3 years, though, tight end 21, tight end 16, tight end 9. And Dwain, we mentioned it with Waldron, likes using 2 tight ends, and specifically likes using Gerald Everett as one of his 2 tight ends. Looking at Waldron, you know, even going back to his Rams days, man, Tyler Higbee and Gerald Everett regularly splitting things fairly close down the middle. And then with the Seahawks, Noah Fant, you know, Gerald Everett, and even Colby Parkinson, Will Dissly, man, it was not a situation we wanted to be overly, you know, thrilled about. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. 2017 to 2023, Shane Waldron's tight end 1 has had more than 63 targets just one time, and that was in that 2019 Rams season where Higbee just went bonkers over the final 4 weeks. Not even sure if Everett was, you know, being really overly used at that point. So accordingly, you know, I think you've done your research, Dwain, because Fantasy Life projections have Kmet getting exactly 63 targets, Everett there at 24. So no, as much as I love Everett's dark visor and his yak ability, I don't think he's a threat to Cole Kmet's #1 job, but I think he could take away 30% of the target share. In fantasy land, that's probably enough to render Kmet as this, you know, touchdown-dependent tight end 2 more weeks than not.
Yeah, I think the bigger challenge is Cole Kmet's got to deal with Keenan Allen and Odunze. They're gonna out target him like crazy, and then you got to deal with the fact that Gerald Everett is going to eat into his playing time. So no longer is Cole Kmet most likely going to be an 80 to 85% route participation guy. Honestly, that's been the best thing we could hang our hat on with him. He's been an average tight end as far as his talent profile goes, so not bad, but also not good. The biggest thing was we knew he would be out there, and there wasn't a lot of target competition. So both of those things are gone. So Cole Kmet, I have drafted on 1.9% of my 160 plus teams. And that's even with me drafting quite a bit of Bears and quite a bit of those NFC North stacks we've talked about a couple times. And I have decent exposure to Caleb Williams as well. So I sprinkle him in if later, sometimes might use him on a 3 tight end build if that scenario worked out that way, but I just have not been drafting Cole Kmet.
tight end 10 through 12 right now and just early ADP. Brock Bowers, David Njoku, Dallas Goedert. That's the last range where I feel like you can actually get a tight end one that you feel good about, and probably, if you were in redraft, wouldn't have to, really worry about switching them, on a week-to-week basis. After them, Dalton Schultz and Pat Freiermuth. I think there's upside scenarios to both, even Freiermuth, as much as you want to hate on Arthur Smith. Freiermuth. Look at the targets that tight end's got in Atlanta. God forbid they all go to Freiermuth for a change. Yeah, I'm drawing the line at Cole Kmet, Dwain. And again, maybe if Everett disappears and he gets a tight end one job, that's fine. But I don't think he's disappearing. He got $12 million over 2 years.
Yeah, this is what we call a tier break. I have 13% Pat Freiermuth, my fourth most drafted tight end, and I have 2% Cole Kmet. That is a tier break.
There you go, ladies and mostly gentlemen. So sleeper potential now, guy we haven't talked about too much, but behind DeAndre Swift, presumably is Khalil Herbert as RB2. There's been people wondering if he could be released. I have no idea why the Bears would do that. It's not like he's costing them anything right now. And, based on what we've seen, especially next gen stats, rushing yards over expectation, he's been pretty freaking good over the years. So yeah, it'd be a lot cooler for the, late round darts I've thrown at Herbert if he somehow gets the Cowboys RB1 job. But more than anything, Dwain, I look at Herbert more so as just this kind of handcuff upside guy, which, hey, where he's going in drafts right now, you can literally get him in the final 3 rounds. Him and guys like, Clyde Edwards-Helaire at the end of drafts. I've thrown more starts in my life.
Has there been any real news though on Herbert other than they signed DeAndre Swift?
Speculation.
Okay.
Now he gets
okay. That's what I thought. That's what I was chalking that up to. But look, Herbert's been a good player. Like, I don't think we can take that away from him. He's been efficient. Last year, early in the year, when he was, getting the carries, I think he was doing the most, with those opportunities. So I like Khalil Herbert. I think it's really tough to say, though, like, are you going to be able to depend on him in fantasy? I would say no. And then is Roschon Johnson still going to be a factor as well? I don't think we can say for sure whether it's Herbert or Roschon Johnson if something happened to DeAndre Swift. So I've really been taking both of them. I've just been mixing them in. You can get them super late in your drafts. If you're in a redraft format, you're not drafting either one of these guys. These are going to be waiver wire options.
No, so I'm looking at the contract right now. Like, yeah, the Bears can save $1 million if they decide to cut him. Why?
It would have to be a trade.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It's not like look, I know they invested a lot in DeAndre Swift, and he did play 16 games last season, but, you look over the course of his career, not exactly the, least injury-prone running back in the NFL. So, yeah, Khalil Herbert.
If I'm the Cowboys, I would definitely pick up the phone on Khalil Herbert.
Or Damian Pierce, man. Please. Just anyone, really, at this point. Would have taken literally anyone. So, yeah, is there a running back, Dwain, at the very end of these drafts? Because, I can talk myself into a few of them. Elijah Mitchell, Khalil Herbert, Braylon Allen, who just based on some of the stuff from Jets camp really does seem, to be the number 2 behind Breece Hall. Tyron Tracy, any of those guys tickling your pickle?
None of those guys are tickling my pickle, but I am. That might be the most surprised face I've ever had on a broadcast. But yeah, I am mixing all those guys up as I regain my composure. I don't have honestly a stake in the ground on any one of those players at this moment. Yeah. I think that could change. Of that group, Elijah Mitchell's been the one I've drafted the most of. I know Isaac Guerendo arrives there. Wasn't super impressed with him in the supermodel, and just that 49ers. We've seen, man, when Elijah Mitchell, I know it's been sporadic when we get to see him out there, but man, he's pretty magical in that offense whenever he gets his opportunities. So that has been the name more often than not. And honestly, the Bears have been the other one. But again, a lot of it comes back to, I end up having, guys from the NFC North already on the team. And I'm like, okay, how do I get some correlation in the last few weeks?
As always, at the end of the team previews, guys, we're going to be comping now the Bears to a TV or movie character. I will go first. And I'm comping the Bears, and hear me out here, the principal from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Not the whole storyline, but basically up until the point where he finally had, Ferris just cornered. Everything seemed like it was finally going to work, and then it just didn't. We'll see how that plays out. But yeah, pure misery day to day. Come on, Bears fans. We've seen what you guys have been going through. There's a big time rivalry. In this case, it's Ferris, but in the Bears case, it's the Packers. And no matter how hard he tries to win that battle, simply always one step behind. So again, very end of the movie, finally got Ferris trapped. The Bears got Caleb. We got a great defense stack, wide receiver room, but can they get past the big bad final boss? Remains to be seen. So, Dwain, normally I throw it to you, but we have a special guest today.
Yeah, we're calling in the closer.
Producer Matt Swing himself, aka resident Fantasy Life super Bears fan. Matt Swing, the floor is yours.
Let's go. Yeah. Obviously, this is more of a heart pick than any sort of analysis behind this at all. But I am going with Caleb Williams is going to be Paul Atreides from Dune. Let's think of just like the comparisons between these two. Paul Atreides coming from Caladan goes to Arrakis. Caleb Williams going from LA, going to Chicago. This guy has a ton of doubters all over the place. All of these Justin Fields truthers are coming into the picture. And because Caleb's a little bit different with his personality compared to Justin Fields, a lot of people are doubting him and his ability to lead this team. But slowly but surely over the course of the season, he's going to start winning people over in Chicago. And he's also going to start winning people over for fantasy. And next year, he's going to be a top 3 fantasy quarterback. I'm calling it right now. I'm taking all the hot takes I can have basically for the Chicago Bears team and Caleb Williams. I am super pumped. Let's go. Caleb Williams is ushering in a new era, baby.
Bear
I like it.
down.
I don't think I could have topped it. I'm glad we brought on Swing to close this out. Like, I mean, this has been his moment. He does talk about the Bears, and he's usually behind the scenes telling Ian and I, "Hey, wrap this segment. You guys got to move forward." You know, I just want to say for the record, we didn't rush you during that, Swing. So you know,
I really appreciate it. I could have gone on for hours about this.
You know, we're kidding. You keep us. You keep it where people can listen to us. If you leave it to me and Ian, we'll go like 90 minutes on everything.
Swing is a true superstar behind the scenes and now in front of the scenes here at Team Fantasy Life. So I don't know if I believe, Matt, that you didn't have that planned out, you know, until 5 minutes before we started this specific team preview. And as someone that has not seen the Dune movies yet, I have no idea of anything that you just said, but it sounded nice, sounded thought out, and for that we thank you.
He's basically Luke Skywalker.
Oh, all right. Yeah, sure.
It's Luke Skywalker.
Again, I just haven't seen it. I heard they're good. I'll work on it.
You've seen Star Wars though. So.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Come on. Come on, Dwain. All right. That's going to wrap up this edition of the Fantasy Life Podcast, everyone. Bear down. We will see what happens there. But yeah, you can check out my full written Fantasy Life Bears team preview over at FantasyLife.com, Dwain's projections, and our consensus ranks. Also, feel free to subscribe to our always free and informative and, dare I say, entertaining daily newsletter. Again, all that and much more at FantasyLife.com. So for Dwain, for producer / media mogul / #1 Bears fan Matt, and for myself, thank you again for tuning in to the Fantasy Life Podcast. And until next time, take care, everybody.